Hello, everyone. I welcome you all to the advanced season of the Masterclass series. In this season, we are exploring the different features of Service Desk Plus that make it a versatile platform. In the first episode, we saw how you can build dynamic templates to gather relevant details. And in the second episode, we saw how you can configure no code and low code automations to save the time and efforts of your technicians. Today, we'll see how you can create life cycles as well as workflows to streamline all the ITSM practices in your organization. This is bound to boost the productivity and elevate your service desk operations. Let me introduce myself. I am Nisha and I'll be your trainer today. Kindly confirm whether I'm audible and whether my screen is visible. And after that, we'll go ahead with today's session. Here is a brief overview of today's agenda. We are going to find how you can create different life cycles and workflows to standardize all your ITSM practices. So, today we are going to see how you can resolve incidents and deliver services on time using the request lifecycle, and how you can address the root causes of all problems using problem lifecycle, and how you can deploy releases and changes in your organization using change and release workflows. Further, we'll also see how you can track the state of all the assets in your inventory using the asset lifecycle. And finally, we'll also see how you can visualize all the projects and visualize the timelines in your organization using Gantt charts and create dependencies between milestones and tasks. Zilker is a fictional company that we generally use in our presentations, webinars, and seminars to explain the various scenarios and use cases that companies generally face when they handle their ITSM practices on a day to day basis. So, for today's session, Zilker is a rapidly upcoming game development company, and it is using a cloud based system, and it has acquired a competitor company which relies on legacy and on premise systems. Now, Zilker should be happy that it has taken steps to consolidate its position in the industry, and it has chances to increase its market capitalization and so on. But due to this acquisition, Zilker has its own fair share of challenges. Imagine the huge amount of sensitive and critical data that Zilker has to handle. So it has to handle the personal details like the names, the email IDs of their employees, the access permissions that they have to critical softwares, the assets that they are using, and so on. And they have to migrate all this critical data from the on premise servers to their cloud. And it is exactly during this migration process that Zilker faced a data leakage issue. And we all know that it is such a big security threat to every company, right? And moreover, Zilker wants to roll out an asset allocation policy throughout its organization. But Zilker is unable to keep a tab on all the assets that are available in its inventory. Now, due to this acquisition, Zilker has to manage all their incoming assets, their new assets, and it has to track whether these assets are in use or whether they are disposed, and who is using these assets, and so on. But Zilker is unable to manage all of that simultaneously. And when Zilker's employees are trying to raise tickets to either report incidents or request for new services or request for changes across the organization, Zilker service desk technicians simply do not have a standard operating procedure in place, and this is leading to a chaotic ticket governance process. Now that we have seen the state of affairs in Zilker, let's see the challenges that Zilker is facing. As I said, Zilker is not having a standard operating procedure in place. So, when Zilker's employees are requesting for a virtual machine instance, their service desk technicians do not have a proper procedure in place to process this request, and this is leading to a haphazard ticket governance process, and all the tickets are closed in an erratic manner. And we also saw that Zilker wants to deploy an asset allocation policy throughout their organization. But Zilker does not have a streamlined change governance process in place, and this is increasing their business risk. And further, we saw that Zilker wants to deploy this policy in a smooth manner across the organization. But because Zilker does not have a structured release process in place, it is increasing their business downtime. And also, we saw that Zilker has acquired a new company, and it has a lot of assets in its inventory. But Zilker is unable to keep a tab on all the incoming assets. Zilker does not know whether these assets are in use or whether they have to be disposed, and who are the users and the departments associated with these assets, and so on. So, because of this, Zilker does not have all the asset details on their fingertips, and it is leading to unnecessary IT spend. And finally, we saw that Zilker has to juggle a lot of organization wide changes simultaneously. It has to migrate their data, roll out the asset policy, keep a tab on all the assets, and so on. But because Zilker cannot visualize all these different projects at the same time, Zilker is unable to complete all these tasks in a timely manner. Now, so far, we have seen that Zilker has acquired a new company, and they want to migrate all their asset details, the user details, and they want to roll out an asset allocation policy, and they're unable to keep a tab on all their assets, and so on. And we've also seen the challenges that Zilker is facing. Now, a Zilker could have easily overcome these challenges by using the life cycles and workflow features available in Service Desk Plus. So let's see how you can streamline all your ITSM practices by using graphical and visual workflows and life cycles. So first up, we have the request lifecycle and problem lifecycle. So initially, we saw that Zilker does not have a standard operating procedure in place to resolve their incidents and deliver their services on time, and they could not address the root cause of their problems. So let's see how Zilker used the request lifecycle feature to onboard their employees, to migrate all the data, and to deliver services on time. And further, we'll also see how Zilker was able to address the potential data leakage issue using the problem lifecycle. So right now, I'm the self-service portal and I'm logged in as the hiring manager. Let me raise a request for onboarding my new employee. And this is the service catalog. Let me go to user management and click on employee onboarding template. Now, as the template loads, let me fill in the necessary details. Let me just fill in the employee details, and let me fill in the employee ID, and let me say that I'm onboarding the new employee to the sales team, and the work mode is resident. And yes, Katie requires access to all the collaboration tools, and Katie also requires certain hardware like the laptop and mobile, and all the other details are pre-filled. And let me add the request. So right now, the hiring manager has raised an employee onboarding request. Let's go to the technician view and see how Zilker used the request lifecycle to standardize the entire process. Now, right now, I'm in the technician view, and this is the request list view. So let me just refresh the tab there. And yes, this is the employee onboarding ticket that the hiring manager had raised. Now, going into the ticket workspace, and let me click on the details tab, and I see that all the employee details are gathered right in place. And the box that is visible here is called transition. When I hover over the transition, the name of the transition is visible, and I can also see the upcoming status. So when I click on a transition, the status will be updated on the right hand pane that is visible right here. So a transition is visible here because the request lifecycle is associated with this particular request template. Now let's see how you can configure such request lifecycle and how transitions will guide technicians to standardize the entire process. So under the technician view, you can go to setup, go to automations, and click on life cycles. So using Service Desk Plus, you can create request lifecycles for both incidents as well as services. So let me open the employee onboarding request lifecycle. And this is a simple drag and drop canvas. A request lifecycle is a visual map that can guide your entire ticket process right from the starting stage to the ending stage. And the white boxes that are visible right here, they are called the ticket status, and the green boxes are called transitions. And these transitions will guide the entire ticket governance journey right from the start to the ending. And you can associate a template right here, and every transition has three different stages, that is the before, during, and after phase. So in the before stage, you can control who can access the transition and under which conditions this transition will be visible. So for example, you can see that this transition you can this for this transition will be visible to the SD admin role, and this particular criteria must be satisfied for this transition to be visible. So under the scope, you can choose different organizational roles, you can go with different technician roles, different groups, and so on. And also you can set different criteria, and you can choose different ticket parameters right here and give them the appropriate value. And when this condition is satisfied, this transition will be displayed to the technician. And in the during phase, you can mandate different fields and perform field updates. And while mandating fields, you can access different ticket parameters right here, and you can gather the necessary details before processing the ticket any further. And you can also perform different field updates. For example, you can create a condition right here, and you can choose to perform different field updates. For example, you can access different ticket parameters right here, so you can update the technician, the template, the priority, and so on. So here I have chosen to update the priority of the request. And in the after phase, you can again perform a whole bunch of actions. So let me show you an example for that. And here you have, if you click on the rule set, you can send a notification, you can create different tasks, you can execute a custom function, and also trigger a webhook. Custom functions are low code solutions, and you can use the Delude script, which is Zoho's own proprietary language. For example, you can automatically create a ticket in your facilities instance whenever an onboarding request is raised, so that a workstation can be allotted to your newly onboarded employee. Or say when your service desk receives an incident, you can use a custom function to trigger a problem ticket automatically. And by using a webhook, you can initiate an interaction with third-party applications. For example, you can update a Jira ticket instantaneously by triggering a webhook. And we also saw that you can create tasks and send out custom notifications, right? So you can do that by simply clicking on add a task, and you can give the necessary details like associating a technician, associating a priority, and so on. And you can also create contextual notifications. So you can do that by clicking on send notification, and you can choose to notify the different stakeholders. So you can go with individual organizational roles, you can choose request users, technicians, and so on. You can also create a custom subject and draft a custom message, and you can use the dollar variable to append different ticket parameters so that you give out the right details to all your end users. And you can also create a common transition. By common transition, what I mean to say is that multiple ticket statuses can lead to a common transition. So you can enable the common transition checkbox right here. And by clicking on that, you will get a drop down of all the available ticket statuses in your request lifecycle. So by choosing different ticket statuses, this transition will be commonly available to the respective ticket statuses. So when I hover over the common transition that is visible on your screen, these two statuses will automatically be mapped to this common transition. So by using this feature, you can create very simple workflows, and you can declutter your entire workflow. So now that we have explored the entire process, let us just quickly go through the entire workflow. So as the hiring manager has submitted the ticket, you can prompt the technician to gather all the relevant details before processing the employee onboarding request. So you can mandate the employee ID field, and in case the technician requires more details, you can bring the tickets to the open status. And once you have all the details in place, you can you can grant the approval for processing this service request. And once the approval is granted, then the assigned technician transition would be visible. And you can assign different technicians by mandating the technician field, and you can also update the priority of the request. And once you assign an expert technician to process your service request, you can start processing your employee onboarding form. And you can assign the email ID and building access card details. And you can also check whether the necessary details like the work mode of the user, and whether the user requires access to different collaboration tools are in place. So you can mandate these fields right here. And after you gather all the required details, you can initiate tasks to provide access to the necessary collaboration tools like Team, Slack, and so on. And you can also prompt the technician to provide the necessary assets to the user. So you can check the availability of the user of the asset, and in case the asset is not available, you can create different tasks to raise a purchase request. And once the purchase order is issued and the asset becomes available in your inventory, you can create tasks to prompt the technician to assign the asset to the user. And you can also notify all your stakeholders that the asset has been associated with the user. And once all of this is done, you can prompt the technician to update the Active Directory, and you can directly conclude the process. Now that we have seen that this is a pretty systematic and simple workflow, let's see this in action. Now, let me go to the ticket workspace and let me click on Analyze. So here I have the employee details. Let me click on Save. And okay, so let me grant the approval for processing this request, and let me click on Submit. So here again, the assigned technician transition is visible to me. And you can see that as and when I click on these transitions, the status is also updated simultaneously. So when I click on Assign Technician Transition, let me assign the necessary group, and let me loop in the expert technicians. And let me click on Save, and you can start processing the employee onboarding. And let me click on Start Process, and let me say that I would like to check the work mode and associate the necessary collaboration tools. By clicking on this transition, I can again gather the required details and click on Save. Now, when that is done, you can see that the status has also been updated simultaneously. And by clicking on the History tab, you can see that the necessary tasks have also been added. So you can nudge the technician to provide access to the necessary collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams, Slack, and so on. And finally, when all these tasks have been updated, I can click on the Update Details transition, and again I can prompt the technician to update the Active Directory. Now, once that is done, let me click on Conclude Process Transition, and let me give it an appropriate closure code. Let me say that the process is a success and click on Save. So here we saw that as and when I clicked on the transitions, the status was also updated simultaneously, and the technician was guided to perform the right action throughout the ticket governance process. And we also saw that Zilker faced a potential data leakage issue, right? So let us see how Zilker was able to use the problem lifecycle feature to address the same. So right now, let me go to the problems module, and let me open an existing problem ticket for that. Here you can see that all the necessary details have been captured. So the services affected, the assets involved, all the details are in place. And again, the transitions are visible right on top. And let me show you how you can configure a problem lifecycle and how Zilker was able to overcome this problem. Now, for that, let us go to the technician view. And let us go to setup, and if you go to automations and click on life cycles, you can go to the problem life cycle tab. And let me open the life cycle that I have in place right now. And this life cycle problem life cycle is very much similar to the request life cycle feature. And again, this is a simple drag and drop canvas, and the white boxes are the ticket statuses, and the green boxes are transitions. And again, for every transition there are three different stages. You can define the scope as well as criteria in the before stage, and you can mandate different fields and update different field values for the during stage. And you can also trigger different actions by sending notifications, running a custom function. You can create tasks and also trigger webhooks. So the functionality of both the request lifecycle as well as problem lifecycle is pretty much similar. Now that we have seen all the features, let us just quickly walk over the entire process that has been mapped right here. So once the ticket process has been raised, if it is a known error, the ticket will follow this particular path and go to the close status. Or and also this known error transition will be visible only if the known error value is true. And you can perform different field updates and let the user know that the known error is as follows. That is, let's say that the encryption is incompatible with the firmware model. So you can let all your stakeholders know that this is a known error. And in case you have a workaround to overcome your problem, by workaround, what I mean to say is that you have a temporary solution in place, and you can let the users perform all their tasks till your service desk technicians find the root cause of all the problems. So you can issue a workaround by using this transition. You can mandate different fields, and you can issue tasks to remind the technician to reset the access permissions. So by following this path, again, you can bring your problem to a successful closure. Now, in case you want to start analyzing your problem, you can ask the technician to gather all the relevant details before they start processing the problem. For example, you can mandate different fields like the priority, the services affected, and so on. And you can also perform a field update to loop in all your expert technicians who can handle these problems in a systematic manner. And once you analyze this problem, you can issue notifications to inform all the stakeholders that you have started analyzing your data breach problem. And you can also initiate a root cause analysis. And for that, you can trigger different tasks, and you can remind the technicians to check the validity of the security certificate, and check whether the encryption algorithm is the latest one, and so on. And once the technician has found out the root cause of the problem, you can issue a solution to all your stakeholders. Now, the solution transition would be visible only if the root cause description has been updated. And once the root cause description is available, the solution transition will be displayed to the technician, and you can initiate a task to ensure that the technician updates the solution. And once you have a resolution in place, you can bring the problem ticket to a successful closure. And now that we have seen that this is a pretty much simple and straightforward workflow, let's see this in action. Now, the transitions that are visible to me are these two. So let us start analyzing the problem. So here, before we go into addressing the root cause of the problem, you can gather all the relevant details. Let me say that the urgency is high and the impact is it affects my business, and let me click on save. Now, the next transition that is visible to me is finding the root cause. And as you can see, the status has also been updated simultaneously. So once I click on finding the root cause, let me just go to the analysis tab and let me update the root cause. Let me say that the encryption is not updated. And let me click on save. And the next transition will be visible right now. Yes, the next transition is finding the solution. When I click on solution, And when you go to the history tab, the particular task has been added, and once the solution is found, you can go to the resolution and give a proper closure code. So let me say that this is a success and click on save, and the problem ticket has been closed successfully. So this is how Zilker was able to use the problem lifecycle feature to address the data leakage issue and update their encryption algorithms to prevent the occurrence of the same. Now, going back, we saw how Zilker was able to use both request as well as problem lifecycles to automate different actions. They were able to send contextual notifications, update different fields, they were able to trigger custom functions and perform webhooks, and so on. They were also able to address the root cause of different problems to ensure that these problems do not repeat in the future. The next feature that we have is the change workflow and a release workflow. Initially, we saw that Zilker wanted to deploy organization wide asset credit policy, and since this is a major change, they did not have a structured change process in place, and this increased their change risk. And because they could not release the process in a streamlined manner, it also increased their business downtime. So, let's see how Zilker was able to use the change and release workflows to systematically roll out the asset credit policy. So right now I'm in the technician view, and let's go to the change module. This is one of the change tickets that I have created, and with Service Desk Plus you can use up to 8 stages of for every change process. And under the details tab you can see all the details that have been captured, and by clicking on the workflow button you can see the associated change workflow. And the green path that is visible here shows the path that the ticket has taken, and you can see real-time updates where your change process is right now, and it'll also help you govern and audit your change process. So let's see how you can configure such change workflows. And by going to setup, you can go to automations and click on workflows. You can create both change as well as release workflows using Service Desk Plus. So let me open the change workflow that I have created for Zilker's use case. Now, as you can see, this is again a simple drag and drop canvas, and you can use the 6 nodes that are visible on the right hand side of your screen to automate your entire change governance process. So you can simply drag and drop these nodes on the canvas, and you can configure each one of them. So let's go through the workflow as well. Once the change workflow reaches the submission stage, you can use the condition node to check whether a condition is satisfied. A condition node is generally a bidirectional node, and you can use to divert your workflow in two different directions. So you can check different ticket parameters. For example, you can use the change risk, the change type, and so on. And because Zilker is rolling out an asset policy throughout the organization, it can entail a lot of change risk. So for this use case, let's say that Zilker wants to check whether the change risk is high. And when you click on save, when this condition is satisfied, you can initiate automatic approvals. So you can use the approval node to configure the same, and you can also configure different approval rules right here. So you can wait for anyone to approve, you can wait for everyone to approve, or you can also wait for the first response that you get, or you can also go with an approval where you require the approval of more than half of your team, or you can also configure a certain percentage of your team to grant the approval, and then you can take the change process forward. And you can loop in different approvers right here. So you can go with individual change roles, organizational roles. You can also choose specific change advisory boards, and you can go with individual users. Once that is done, you can create a custom subject and draft a custom message, and you can click on save. And once the submission has been approved, you can direct the change workflow to the planning stage. And under every stage, you can choose the change. You can choose specific change stages by using this drop down, and you can also loop in the different change statuses right here. And once you have that in place, you can use the condition node again to check whether a backup plan is there in place. We know that since this is an organization wide change, you also require fail proof strategies to ensure a successful policy rollout, right? So you can check whether a backup plan description is in place, and once this condition is satisfied, you can approve the plan. You can approve the planning stage, and you can create a multi-directional workflow using the switch node, and you can select different fields of your change process and give different field values, and say let's say that since this is an organization wide change and if it affects my business, I can choose to go with the cab evaluation stage. But if the policy does not affect my entire business, and let's say that it just affects a particular group or a user, I can choose to skip the cab evaluation stage and directly divert the workflow to the implementation stage. So, as this affects my entire business, I can go with the cab evaluation stage. And once the cab approves the entire process, you can direct the workflow to the implementation stage. And once the implementation stage is reached, you can shoot out timely notifications to inform different stakeholders. And again, here you can choose to notify specific stakeholders like the change users, the organizational roles, and so on. You can also draft a custom subject, a custom message, and so on. And once the notification is out and you have approved the implementation, you can release the policy throughout the organization, and you can also review the same. If the review is a success, you can perform a field update. And under the field update, you can access different fields that are available in your change governance process. So you can update your backout plan, you can update the checklist description, you can update the impact details, and so on. So here you can let your stakeholders know that Zilker's policy, the asset policy, fits the requirements of Zilker, and so the review is a success. And then you can bring your entire change process to a successful closure. So, this is how Zilker was able to govern the entire organization wide asset allocation policy rollout. And let's see this in action. Now, this is the change ticket that I was talking about. And right now, let's say that we are in the implementation stage. Now, by going to the approvals tab, let me click on approve and grant the approval. Now, once that the approval is submitted, let me just slightly refresh my tab, and you can see that it has proceeded to the next stage. So this is how Zilker used change workflows to govern all their change processes. So this is how Zilker was able to plan the asset allocation policy in a smooth manner. And with Service Desk Plus, you can also associate different releases along with your change. So when I click on associate release, you can you can you can directly go to the release that has been associated with this particular change. And with Service Desk Plus, you can access up to 9 stages for every release process. And by clicking on the workflow button right here, similar to the change workflow, you can also see the release workflow that is associated and that governs this release process. And again, the green path shows the path that is taken by the release to complete the entire workflow. And now let us see how you can configure such comprehensive release workflows from the technician view. So right now you can go to setup, and under automation you can go to workflows and you can click on release workflows. Let me open the release workflow that I have configured to release the asset allocation policy throughout the organization. The release workflow is again very much similar to your change workflow, and the same 6 nodes are available right here on the right hand pane. The only difference is that with the change workflow you can customize up to 8 stages, and for a release workflow you can customize up to 9 stages. It is not mandatory that you use every stage in your workflow, and this is completely dependent on your use case. So let's go through the entire workflow quickly, and let's say that the workflow is in the submission stage. And you can check using a condition node whether Zilker has the entire list of assets that are involved. And once that is in place, you can direct the workflow to the planning stage. And you can also use the condition node to check whether Zilker has a checklist in place. Now, we saw that this is a major change, and this is such a risky deployment of the a major asset allocation policy throughout the organization, right? And you can use checklist descriptions to ensure that you strategize your policy release in a systematic manner. And once you approve the planning stage, you can divert your release workflow to the development stage. And under after it goes to the development stage, you can notify all your stakeholders and you can divert the workflow to the testing stage. And again, when you notify all your stakeholders about the initiation of the testing process, you can divert the workflow to the deployment stage. And here you can use the switch node to create a multi-directional workflow. This is again similar to your change workflow. Now, because this is an organization-wide change and you have to deploy this in a really careful and consistent manner, you can use a switch node to deploy the policy across different sites. So you can access different field values here, and you can give the different field values right here. And the field value that I have chosen here is the site. So once the release workflow reaches the deployment stage, you can choose to notify the IT teams across different sites, and you can give them sufficient breathing time to ensure that the IT teams are sufficiently equipped to roll out their policy in their respective sites. And once the asset allocation policy is rolled out, you can review the same. And if the review is a success, you can bring the release to a successful closure. And if in case the review fails, you can update the field value. So here you can update the closure code and give the close description, and you can let all your stakeholders know that the asset policy did not meet Zilker's requirement, and this entire process has been rejected. So let's see all of this in action. And when you go to the release workspace, you can see that a release has been taken through all the different stages. And using the release workflow, you can successfully deploy the policy across your organization. So going back, we saw how Zilker was able to design comprehensive change and release workflows, and how it was able to automate different actions like performing approvals, sending out contextual notifications, updating fields, and creating multi-directional paths using the switch node, and so on. And they were also able to update different fields in both the change and release workflows, like their impact details, their rollout plans, their backup plans. And using all of these workflows, they were able to minimize the change risk and minimize their business downtime. The next feature that we have in list is the asset lifecycle. So we saw that initially Zilker faced a huge influx of assets, and they were unable to track whether the assets were in use or whether the assets were decommissioned, and who was using the asset, and where the assets were allocated, and so on. So let's see how Zilker was able to use the asset lifecycle feature to monitor and track all their assets. So right now, let's go to the assets module. And let me open one of the virtual machine instances. And as Zilker is a game development company, Zilker's employees are using virtual machines to enhance the performance of their games. And again, you see that under the details tab, all the details have been captured in a granular manner, and the transitions are again visible on the top of the screen. And when I click on the transition, the name of the transition as well as the upcoming state of the asset is also visible. Now, let's see how you can configure asset lifecycles, and we'll also see the same in action. For that, you can go to setup, and go to automations, click on life cycles, and you can click on the asset lifecycle tab. So let me open the asset lifecycle for virtual machine instance. And the configuration is pretty much similar to both your request lifecycle as well as your problem lifecycles. And here you can associate every asset lifecycle to individual product types, and you can configure different product types using the customization section that is available in Service Desk Plus. And again, similar to the request lifecycle, the white boxes are the asset states and the green boxes are transitions. And for every transition, you have three different stages, that is the before, during, and after. And for the before state, you can configure the scope as well as criteria. And for the during stage, you can mandate fields and perform different field updates. And in the after phase, you can perform different custom actions. So you can send contextual notifications, you can execute custom functions, and also trigger a webhook. And let us just quickly go through the entire asset lifecycle process. This is pretty much simple and it is a visual workflow. So let's say that the asset is in the provisioning status. So the first boot transition will be visible only if the virtual host details are in place. And when you're processing the asset details, you can gather the necessary details by mandating the respective fields. Let's say that the technician is gathering the operating system details. And once the technician has that in place, the asset moves to the staging state. And from the staging state, you can get the virtual machine running. And in case the virtual machine has some error or requires some maintenance, you can direct the virtual machine to the in repair state. And once the virtual machine is fixed, you can again get the virtual machine instance up and running. And from the running state, let's say that if you want to remove or retire your instance, you can use the remove instance transition to delete the virtual machine instance from your inventory, and you can terminate the entire process. So let's see how you can configure the different actions. Here for the fixed transition, you can under the after state, you can notify all your stakeholders saying that the virtual machine instance has been fixed. And if you want to mandate different fields or update different field values, you can access them in the during phase. And here you can perform a required field update. So let's say that you're terminating the access of the virtual machine instance. So here you can delink the association of the asset with either the user or the department or the site and so on. So this is a pretty straightforward and comprehensive asset lifecycle, right? So let's see how this asset lifecycle can be used to track the entire asset through different states. So right now we are in the asset details page, and let me say that this asset is in the running state. And right now, if the asset is facing an error, let me click on the error transition. And by doing that, the asset state has also been updated simultaneously. So right now it is in the in repair state. And let me say that the asset has been fixed. So by clicking on the fixed transition, the asset goes to the running state again. So this is how Zilker was able to track the asset lifecycle, and Zilker was able to handle and manage all the assets in their inventory in a smooth and systematic manner. So going back, we saw how Zilker was able to use the asset lifecycle to automate different actions, and how it was able to perform different field updates, create custom functions, trigger webhooks, and so on. The next feature that we have in place are the Gantt charts and milestones and task dependencies. From the beginning of today's session, we've been seeing that Zilker has a lot of things to handle. Because of this acquisition, Zilker had to onboard their employees, they had to migrate a lot of sensitive and personal data, they had to roll out organization wide asset allocation policies, and so on. And Zilker could not manage so many projects simultaneously, and this led to a lot of delays in their execution process. So let's see how Zilker was able to visualize all these projects using Gantt charts and also map the interdependencies between milestones and tasks. So right now we are in the technician view, and let us go to the projects module. And let me open one of the projects that I have already created for Zilker's use case. And under the details tab, you can see that all the details of the project have been captured in a comprehensive manner. And under the milestones tab, I can get all the details of the milestones that are required to complete the project on time. Milestones are actually key activities that are required to be achieved to direct the entire project in a systematic manner. And here you can add new milestones by using the add milestone icon. And by going into individual milestones, you can get all the details in a granular manner. And by clicking on the task tab, you can associate different tasks to different milestones. So you can add a task by either using this button, or you can quickly add a task from the quick add button. And for every task, you can configure the task name. For every task, you can give the title, you can record the schedule start and the end date, and you can capture the priority, you can assign the task, you can assign an owner to all the tasks, and so on. So for every milestone, you can create multiple tasks. Tasks are generally the smaller activities that you can perform to achieve a milestone. So this is the association that tasks have with different milestones. And under the timesheet tab, you can capture the time efforts of different technicians. And under the history tab, you can view all the operations that are required to complete the to achieve different milestones. And by clicking on the task dependency feature, you can view the interlinkage between different tasks and milestones. And this is again a simple drag and drop canvas where you can simply create an interdependency by dragging the start node and the end node, and right there you can create the task dependency. And when you hover over different tasks, you can get the task features at a glance, and you can also track the progress level of different tasks. So this is how you can visualize the interdependencies between all your milestones and tasks. Now, Zilker has a list of all the milestones and tasks in place. But Zilker, as we saw, Zilker has multiple projects to handle simultaneously, and it wanted to visualize all of that in a single console. And for that, you can use the Gantt chart feature. Here in the left hand side, you can see that you can access all the milestones available in the project. And when you expand the individual milestones, the tasks are also visible right underneath. And a Gantt chart is a color coded chart, and it gives you a bird's eye view of all the projects that are going on simultaneously. And the orange lines stand for the different milestones, and the blue lines stand for the different tasks. When you hover over the task, you can again view the task details, and you can edit them by using the edit icon. So right here, you can schedule the task, you can assign owners to the task, you can assign different priorities to the task, and so on. And you can also customize the look and feel of your Gantt charts. So by using this zoom in and zoom out feature, you can adjust the time scale according to your requirement and click on apply. And the orange lines that you see here are the task dependencies. So this is another way how you can map the task, and how you can map the interdependencies between milestones and tasks. So all you have to do is simply drag and drop. You can drag and drop between the start node and the end node, and this orange line would be visible. And in case you don't want this dependency, you can also delete or edit it. And you can also adjust the time schedule for every task. You can do that by simply dragging the every individual task line. So you can either decrease them or expand them, and once you are done with that, you can see that the task schedule has been updated automatically. So this is how Zilker was able to visualize their entire project timeline right from a single console. So going back, we saw how Zilker was able to manage organization wide changes and manage multiple projects simultaneously using the milestones, the tasks, and by mapping interdependencies between them, and how they were able to visualize their entire project timeline using Gantt charts. So, before we wrap up today's session, let's have a quick recap. We saw how Zilker was able to use the request lifecycle to deliver services on time, to resolve incidents quickly, and how they use the problem lifecycle to address the root causes of all their problems, and how they were able to automate different actions like triggering contextual notifications, performing field updates, and how they were able to mandate different fields, and so on. And we also saw how Zilker was able to deploy different changes and releases in their organization using the change and release workflows. And we also saw how you can automate different actions using the workflows. So they were able to automate approvals, they were able to send timely contextual notifications, and they were able to create multi-directional and bi-directional workflows, and they were also able to customize the stages according to their requirements, and so on. We also saw how Zilker was able to keep a tab on the assets that are available in their inventory, and they use the asset lifecycle feature to update different fields and to trigger contextual notifications, and so on. And finally, we also saw how Zilker was able to manage multiple projects simultaneously, and how Zilker was able to view and visualize the entire project timeline using Gantt charts and create interdependencies using the task dependency feature. If you want to learn more about Service Desk Plus, do not forget to visit our admin guide, and you can also go through the release notes, and you can also watch the previous masterclass videos, and don't forget to go through our YouTube channel for that. And you can also interact with the peers of the industry using a community, and it is pretty vibrant place out there. And you can also contact our support team using the website link that is available on your screen, and you can also write to us at hello@servicedeskplus.com. Thank you so much for being with us for today's session. Hope it was quite insightful, and thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Stay tuned for the next upcoming masterclass episode. Thank you.